Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Preview of General Hospital. The wedding cake will be taken by Willow and Drew's amazing wedding. General Hospital needs to know that we will be watching, popcorn in hand, and on the tip of our seats for what is sure to be one of the most hectic reveal events in daytime history, so they aren't even waiting for RSVPs to Willow and Drew's wedding this week. The only issue is, how is it, and, by extension Drew, going to go down? Nina is so desperate that she reveals that she had a brief affair with Drew in order to prevent her daughter from marrying her shady ex-boyfriend. In an attempt to free wife Portia from the groom's control, Curtis is also at his wit's end and is prepared to betray friend Nina by telling the bride. Then there is Portia herself, who has every right to exclaim, "Fuck off, you tell Willow that she has been the victim of months of blackmail from her would-be better half." Michael is a dark horse to call off the wedding. He could sit Willow down and ask her to complete the math one last time. Why would he pretend that he didn't reject her in Germany? Furthermore, why would he have ever said what Wiley heard Drew telling Rick he had? Do you recall that scalding mess? Keep in mind that Willow is not likely to change her mind at this point, so an epic reveal at the altar is inevitable. We have a suspicion that Willow's courtroom meltdown will be nothing compared to this one, assuming you thought that was anything. Perhaps this is what will cause her personality to completely collapse. Encouraging friends, wedding fantasies, and nightmares come true. Updates and spoilers for General Hospital hint at wedding fantasies, supportive friends, and nightmares coming true. Isaiah Gannon supports his friend, Willow Tate fantasizes about getting married, and Lucas Jones' worst fears come true. Wedding dreams. Willow is dreamily telling Elizabeth Baldwin that she will be Mrs. Drew Kane tomorrow in the hospital. Elizabeth grins, but she doesn't tell her what she likely thinks about it, because she knows Drew isn't the man she recalls. However, the two must put patients' needs first because nursing needs come first while they are at work. Willow is free to have as many dreams as she likes, but her hero isn't acting very bravely these days. No one who was previously acquainted with him can accept that he is the same person. Tracy reacts when Martin has news. Tracy Quartermain probably reacts to Martin Gray when she informs him that's never going to happen when he shares some news with her. Maybe he's telling her about Willow and Drew's wedding because he wants to present them in a positive light in the next custody hearing. She believes that they will never be granted custody of Wiley and Amelia Corinthos because of her dead body or Drew's. She is attempting to remove Sonny Corinthos, but there is also the referendum to worry about. Isaiah attempts to support his friend at the hospital because Portia Robinson is in a difficult situation and has been blackmailed by Drew to fabricate Michael Corinthos' medical records. Drew wants those documents to demonstrate his opioid addiction, which is understandable for a burn patient taking potent painkillers. Drew warned Portia that if she didn't cooperate, she would lose her family and her medical license, and she has been struggling to come clean. Based on Isaiah's reaction to her, Portia must be sharing her potential plans with him. He advises her to fight until the end if she is going down. Dreams come true. Standing in the police station beside Harrison Chase and ADA Justine Turner, Lucas feels as though his worst are coming true. With a file in her hand, Turner informs the two men that the PCPD must investigate this as a possible kidnapping. Lucas accuses Sonny of being the reason Marco Rios is still missing after failing to appear at his mother's memorial service. After attempting to flee, Marco is still restrained, strapped to a chair, in what looks to be a storage room. Since Jason Morgan rescued Daisy Gilmore and Sasha Corbin, has anyone checked on him? Malicious expectations? As he stands outside and calls on his phone, Jen Sidwell's body language conveys that he has wicked aspirations. Because he says he expects to receive what is rightfully his, he is quite serious. He is certain that Sonny has his son, who is still missing, but Sonny appears to be at a disadvantage. Marco has not been located by Sidwell's people, and Sonny has stated unequivocally that Sidwell bears responsibility for his son's destiny. What precisely does Sidwell have in store, and how will he respond? Laura receives unsettling information. Meanwhile, Sonny appears to be pushing Laura Collins to act when she delivers some unsettling information while they are together. He assures her that he will if she doesn't, and both her and his expressions are grave. The fact that Sonny and Sidwell are fighting over the piers may be related to this. Although not everyone agrees, Laura believes that Sonny is the lesser of two evils. General Hospital spoilers, after the drama with Drew, does Willow flee with the kids to her secret cabin hideout? Given that her world is about to collapse, General Hospital spoilers and updates hint that Willow Tate may be thinking about taking a cabin vacation in the future. When things become heated with Drew Kane, would she go to a hiding place and abduct Wiley and Amelia Corinthos? Isaiah talked to Willow about his new money pit that Lucky Spencer gave him in the GH episode that aired on July 16. Willow and Isaiah Gannon had an interesting conversation. Willow overheard Isaiah talking on the phone about the different repairs that needed to be done, and he revealed that the cabin that Lucky Spencer had given him was starting to become expensive. However, Isaiah made it clear that he wanted to keep the cabin as a getaway and maybe even pass it on to future generations. Could Isaiah and Willow's discussion regarding the cabin have a deeper significance? What happens if Willow eventually chooses to make that cabin her own haven? Willow's life is about to explode. Willow's world has fallen apart and is only going to get worse. With Portia Robinson's assistance, Drew is planning to paint Michael Corinthos as an opioid addict, but if this plan is discovered, it may easily backfire. Willow, meantime, is about to learn that Drew and Nina Reeves had a previous romance behind her back. Willow may realize that her children are all she has left when her relationship with Drew eventually ends. In a bold move, Willow could come up with a scheme to arrest Wiley and Amelia. Finding Isaiah's cabin wouldn't be too hard. Looking up property transfers, Willow would only have to browse the Port Charles City website for property transfer data to locate Isaiah's cabin without having to do any serious investigation. Until she decides what to do next, she might think about running away and hiding there with the kids for a rustic getaway. Since Isaiah has grown to be a close friend and is aware of Willow's difficulties, especially given how dangerous Drew may be, it's even possible that he could be able to assist her. Whatever the case, Willow and Isaiah's protracted conversation about the cabin appears to have a purpose beyond merely establishing a romantic relationship. We'll have to wait and see if Willow eventually gets a cabin hideaway, but it seems like they might be laying the groundwork for something larger. Chaos during the wedding. General Hospital spoilers, Sunny vows retaliation as Willow's wedding falls apart. As Willow prepares for her nuptials, Portia finally loses it. Sunny's adversaries cause mayhem in the meantime, and Lucas makes a startling charge that might change the outcome in Port Charles. Willow Tate is beaming as she talks to Elizabeth Baldwin about getting married to Drew Kane, but her wedding happiness is met with impending heartbreak. She exudes happiness and optimism for the future. Willow says she's excited to begin this new chapter with Drew. Unfortunately, spectators are aware that this jubilation might not endure. There is trouble ahead. These days, Drew has more enemies than friends because of his convoluted alliances and dubious pressures. Willow's happiness is at jeopardy when she accidentally enters a storm. She is currently enjoying every second of her bridal bliss, though. In other General Hospital spoilers, Isaiah Gannon gives Portia Robinson some stern counsel. Portia fights back, and Curtis sets a trap. She must give it her all if she is going to die. Portia had been fatigued by Drew's deceitful techniques. He continues to push her hand, but this time, Portia isn't going to keep quiet. She is prepared to resist and hold her ground. Curtis Ashford is simultaneously preparing his next spectacular move. He intends to tell Willow about Nina Reeves' romance with Drew. Even if it means destroying lives, Curtis is certain Willow deserves to know the truth. Portia and Curtis' relationship may also suffer as a result of her desire to stop caving in. Once all the secrets are revealed, it's impossible to predict what will happen. Lucas reports a startling absence at the PCPD. Lucas Jones arrives at the Port Charles Police Department bearing important news. He doesn't hold back when he wants to report Marco Rios missing. Lucas accuses Sunny Corinthos of being involved in foul play. Harrison Chase is urged to act quickly by ADA Justine Turner, who pays close attention. She maintains that it appears to be an abduction. Once more, Chase finds himself caught between the proof and Sunny's reputation. The pressure is on for answers regarding Marco's abrupt departure. General Hospital spoilers, Jen Sidwell makes a calculated decision as Sunny makes a bold promise and Sidwell strikes a deal. He is prepared to compromise with Sunny. He may cede some authority, but not without cost. Sidwell wants Marco freed in return. He wants to work things out through negotiation, but Sunny isn't known for making easy deals. A terrifying pledge is made by Sunny when he sees Laura Collins later. He tells her, "If you don't, I will," obviously alluding to justice or retaliation. Sonny responds that he's prepared to make amends after Laura receives unsettling information that probably relates to Marco's disappearance. As Dr. Liesel Albrecht exited the elevator and returned to a world that hadn't fully recovered from her previous departure, a refreshing wind blew through the tree-lined perimeter of General Hospital. The always-changing city of Port Charles had a way of remembering its wounds, and she wore hers like a silk scarf, fashionable but unavoidable. Despite her polished return, her eyes retained the same storm they always had, and her boots clicked purposefully across the floor. This time, though, they were fueled by more, a silent sorrow for her daughter and a persistent wish for a different future. There was more to Liesel's return than nostalgia or unfinished business. Rocco Falconeri, whose recent quest for self-awareness had brought him into the long shadows of his late Aunt Britt Westbourne, asked in a low voice. Liesel had been roused by his curiosity, loss, yes, but pride, too. Britt had never really gotten the credit she was due, particularly not from her relatives. Liesel had come back to assist in carrying the candle that Rocco's interest had lit in the dark. But going back to Port Charles was about more than just facing the past. It meant confronting those who had witnessed her collapse, her deception, and her recovery. And maybe for the first time in years, it meant giving herself permission to see a future other than one centered around loss. The bridge close to the Quartermain boathouse was her first destination rather than the hospital. She stood by herself, gazing into the motionless water while the wind pulled at her clothing. She hadn't really said goodbye to Britt in a proper manner. To be honest, she had never thought Britt was really gone. There was no body discovered. The blow had never been lessened by any closure. Just quiet. But Liesel had never been content with silence. She had come back for family, for answers, and maybe, just maybe, for something more. When Martin Gray saw her later that day through the hospital cafeteria's glass wall, his face flashed from surprise to something warmer. He smiled cautiously as he walked up. With a slight head tilt, he added, "Well, Port Charles just got a lot more interesting." "Be careful, Mr. Gray," Liesel said with a thick accent, a smile curving her lips. Martin said with a soft laugh, "Flattery works only if you mean it." He pointed to the seat across from him. After a moment of hesitation, she took it. At first, they talked casually about where she had been, how long she had been there, and what had brought her back, but then a quiet, inquisitive spark between them started to develop. Despite his disarming manners and southern charm, Martin found something intriguing about Liesel. Yes, she was challenging. She was unyielding. However, she was fiercely loyal to the few people she permitted in her circle and unabashedly intelligent. He liked that. For her part, Liesel felt strangely grounded by Martin's serene spirit. She made sharp comments, yet he didn't recoil. She pushed him, but he didn't back down. He maintained his position with ease rather than haughtiness. However, romance was not the motivation for her return, or at least it was not the explanation she gave. Later that afternoon, Rocco met her by himself in Charlie's pub, where they sat in a table away from prying eyes. He whispered about his interest in Britt, what he had learned so far, and a void inside of him that he hadn't been able to identify until he found out who she was. By the conclusion of it, Liesel's palm was over his as she listened uninterrupted. His genuineness resonated deeply with her. For once, someone was in need of Britt, not out of sympathy. Whatever he was looking for, memories, closure, something to cling to, Liesel vowed to assist him in finding it. However, her homecoming did not sit well with everyone. She was back in town, and Scott Baldwin, who was still recovering from foot surgery, had heard the rumors. He hadn't contacted him yet, and Liesel hadn't either. She wasn't prepared to rip open wounds that might never fully heal because their previous encounter had been intense and unresolved. In her own way, she had loved him. However, time had gone by. Perhaps too much. The hospital's hallways were alive with familiar faces. With an emotional embrace and a ton of questions that Liesel wasn't quite prepared to answer, Nina Reeves welcomed her aunt. She reassured Nina that she was okay and gave her a smile that fell short of her eyes. However, Nina was aware that Liesel had changed. A sense of grief gripped her like a second skin. Nevertheless, quiet reflection was never possible in Port Charles. As soon as Liesl started sorting through Britt's old medical records in the GH archives, she discovered a troubling note about a former patient connected to Dalton's experimental lab research, the same project that had raised suspicions in the WSB and recently caught Jocelyn and Vaughn's attention. Despite the fact that the files were incomplete and occasionally cleaned, something about the language and timing unnerved her. Before she vanished, could Britt have been investigating this? Liesl was unaware that Jason had lately run across Britt, someone he never saw at the airport. Or someone who looked like her. He hadn't told Sunny or Carly yet, but the sighting had made him uneasy. However, the mere mention of Britt's name now raised new concerns, and possibly even threats. Soon after, the mysterious Pine Valley physician David Hayward arrived for a medical ethics conference held at the hospital. He and Liesl met in an elevator, and it took them less than 30 seconds to start arguing. At first, she didn't like David's sardonic humor and clinical distance. However, there was a secret intrigue. Few others confronted her with the precision and lack of condescension that he did. The hospital's board of trustees invited Liesl to a dinner later that week. Out of curiosity rather than duty, she went, but she was seated between Martin and David. Thinly veiled jabs and smoldering flirting filled the talk, which was like a verbal chess game. David's icy reasoning was counterbalanced by Martin's warmth, and Liesl found herself relishing the tension more than she wanted to acknowledge. The hospital hallways started to echo with whispers. Is Liesl in a new relationship? Is she making advances toward Martin Gray, or is she more attracted to David Hayward? Although the chatter was unharmful, it triggered a deeper emotion in Liesl. Since Britt's disappearance, she hadn't given traditional love any thought. She hadn't given herself permission to indulge her emotions. It started to feel more like a return to life and less like a betrayal of sadness now that it was surrounded by possibilities. Ever vigilant, Nina saw the shift. "Are you in a relationship over wine one evening?" she inquired. Nina pressed, but Liesl initially deflected. "Perhaps," she finally said. "Maybe not seeing. But looking." Nina remarked, "You deserve it, you know." Liesl looked out of the window and said, "You deserve to feel again." "Perhaps." However, old habits do not die easily. She couldn't resist digging when she found out that Martin had recently spoken with Drew Quartermain regarding legal issues pertaining to Aurora and its financial interests. It was difficult for Liesl to trust Martin, and she was concerned that their loyalties might eventually clash. The next time they met, he called her out on her coolness. "You could at least tell me what you're suspicious of if you're going to punish me for doing my job," he remarked tactfully. "I don't suspect anything," she said. "I exercise caution." "There is a distinction." He grinned. She knew she was already cautious with me when she said, "Well, you don't have to be cautious with me." David, on the other hand, gave her a completely different energy. He was distant but perceptive. Trust was not what he sought. He didn't want to be committed. He understood obsession since he was a scientist. He knew her grief better than anyone, in some weird way. After a particularly difficult hospital board meeting, he gave her a glass of wine and said, "I read the file you found. I believe Britt had a point." Liesl viewed him as an ally rather than a competitor. The Port of Charles held its breath. Liesl was at a turning point. Her own unfulfilled desire for Britt's truth, David's intrigue, and Martin's stability all drew her in separate directions. Then there was Rocco, who mirrored her own need for connection. One evening, Liesl was sitting on Britt's old balcony with a view of the river as the sun sank below the horizon. Her favorite, a bouquet of yellow lilies, lay close. She was holding a letter from Rocco, the words highlighted in blue ink. "I miss her even though I never met her." Liesl put the page to her chest and thought, that must mean something. She hadn't returned for affection. She hadn't returned in search of drama or resolution. She would return for Britt. For the family. For the truth. But if she could open the door, perhaps, just possibly, love might find her nevertheless. And she thought about unlocking it for the first time in years. Anna thinks Jocelyn is WSB, and Jason longs for Britt. Jocelyn Jax receives a warning, and Carly Spencer and Jack Brennan catch up. Brooklyn Quartermain receives a surprise, Jason Morgan experiences nostalgia, and Dante Falconeri and Anna Devane talk about Jocelyn. Carly and Jack catch up at the Metro Court pool. Jack surprised Carly by telling her that he had reserved the space exclusively for them. She wants to know what the surprise is. After jokingly hinting that it's a secret, he admits that he has just been missing her. Carly has experienced the same emotions. She gives him an update on her granddaughter's indefinite leave of absence from town, and he says he's been making progress on a difficult problem at work. It has crushed her and Michael Corinthos. Carly tells him about all the weird things that have happened with Daisy Gilmore. Carly and Jack talk about the future. Carly explains that she was hesitant to tell Jack because she was afraid it would lead to his becoming involved with Sonny Corinthos again. She doesn't want him to think she's taking advantage of him because he has already done so much for her. Carly wants him in her life for more reasons than just helping her deal with her problems. They talk about his loneliness, which results from his attempts to avoid having a personal life, and he hopes she will contact him whenever she is having problems. They kiss when he admits that he finds comfort in being near her. Vaughn issues a serious warning. Joss and Vaughn arrived at the office to discover their boss was not there. She surmises that Brennan's relationship with her mother must be illegal. In response, he advises her to keep her personal life and work separate. Vaughn cautions that if she looks into Jack's indiscretions, she might end up working at a desk job. He stresses that Jack is unique and has saved his life many times. It would be unwise for her to be Jack's enemy if she wants to have a prosperous career. He worries that she might become sidetracked, but she assures him that she will not do anything to jeopardize the mission. At that moment, he gets a call telling him that the courier has just boarded a flight to Dubrovnik. Dante gives Anna something to think about. Talking about Jocelyn in Anna's office, Dante is shocked to hear Anna say that she thinks Jack has enlisted Joss in the WSB. He finds this hard to believe, but she is sure Joss has already received instruction and that he sees her as just his younger sister. Anna is certain that the WSB brought Joss in to keep an eye on Professor Henry Dalton because she thinks she is the kind of woman Jack would like to hire. She must have been enticed in by Cyrus Renaud, who probably recognized that she reminded him of Joss's pursuit of Cyrus. Anna wonders whether Jack helped Joss find Cyrus by giving her information that no other citizen would have. Anna discusses Jack taking advantage of Jocelyn's anguish. It seems that Jack turned Joss into an agent by taking advantage of her sorrow for Dex Heller and her desire for justice. She considers how she came to be an agent, and Dante worries that his sister isn't aware of the risks she faces. They think she was trained on her purported trip to Easter Island, and Anna is positive that Joss looked for a purpose and Jack gave it to her. She claims that Joss has already manipulated Emma in order to gain Dalton's favor because she believes he is up to something far more sinister than merely conducting unlawful animal experiments. They talk about the personal expenses of becoming a member of the WSB. Anna suspects Jack may have been using Carly to reach Jocelyn. Dante thinks Carly would rather be kept in the dark, so Anna suspects Jack may have been using Carly to reach Joss. However, Anna believes they lack sufficient information to move forward with any actions. They should wait to act since Dalton must pose a significant risk. Dante fears that in order to get rid of Dalton, Jack could be willing to put an agent in danger. He questions whether she would have hoped that someone would have rescued her from the WSB when she was Joss's age. Brooklyn and Lucy are at Home and Heart. Lucy Code tells Flora Gardens that they are thrilled to be joining her at the Home and Heart studio and that she will be a great host. She acknowledges that she is a little worried about appearing on camera and remarks that Brooklyn Quartermain is experiencing some anxiety. When her mother BLQ explains that Lucy had to step down as the spokesman, Flora assures her that they can keep Lucy focused and that she will perform just as well. Lucy tries to give BLQ a motivating speech as part of her plan to keep the audience interested, but BLQ can't help but think of how much the crowd loved her mother. After Flora introduces the two women from Deception and they show their new serum, the broadcast starts, and she yearns for their former personalities. Brooklyn is surprised. Lucy begins by saying that she wishes Lois Chirulo was here and then abruptly calls her up on stage, which surprises BLQ. Lois murmurs to BLQ that she was told this would happen as the mother and daughter are urged to embrace. Lucy takes Flora aside so that the two can present after BLQ tells Lois that she's not sure whether to embrace her or fire her. They awkwardly discuss how much they resemble sisters and then continue with the pitch. Lucy shows Flora the ratings backstage. Lois and BLQ are successful. Brooklyn fires her mother as the ceremony comes to an end. They go back to the others. Flora hopes they'll be back shortly once the broadcast concludes. Lucy responds that she did this for the brand and for them when BLQ confronts her right away. Can't they put their disagreements aside and go on? Lois expresses her pride in her daughter and apologizes. BLQ is incensed and threatens to show Lucy what she has learned from Tracy if she repeats her behavior. She then dismisses Lois and leaves. Jason is nostalgic at the Paris airport. Jason boarded a commercial aircraft home after dropping Sasha Corbin and Daisy off with Robert Scorpio. He was startled and taken aback when he saw a woman that resembled Britt Westbourne boarding an aircraft. Jason pleads with the guard to allow him to board the aircraft so he can speak with a passenger, but they turn him down. After boarding his aircraft, he is overcome with nostalgia as he recalls the woman who looked like Britt and her struggle with Huntington's illness. He also recalls how they parted ways when he married Carly. Meanwhile, Britt gets out of a car in Dubrovnik, Croatia, and says she's glad to be back. The top 10 misses and hits 10. Miss, please slow down. In record time, Liam went from getting shot to having his brain tumor removed. Liam was hardly given time to heal from his experimental surgery at an unidentified clinic before Dr. Buckingham informed Bill that it was time to bring him home. Even the $1 million wire transfer went smoothly. 9. Hit, in Nice, Chance finally gets to spice things up. For the past month, the South of France episodes have mostly included the same players. However, we haven't seen many of some of them. Where, for instance, are Lauren and Michael? What, we've only seen them once? Chance, who is spearheading this murder probe, has finally been introduced to us since Damien's departure. 8. Miss, in this Martin reveal story, where is Ted? There seems to be a beat missing here. We learned that Ted was aware of Martin and Vernon's terrible night 2 years prior when he was invited to attend that Avengers gathering at Bill's legal practice. And that's all Ted has given us. Martin's strong bond with his grandfather was on full display this week. Ted and Martin, not so much. If there is a reason why the two don't interact much, we would love to hear it from the show. 7. Hit, Ari acknowledges that Doug 3 is a failure. After being abducted, Holly and Ari compared notes and concluded that Doug 3 was a complete failure. The girls were in this risky situation because of him. Additionally, when Doug hooked up with Ari, he was messy and into Holly. Ari was wise enough to see that Doug was bad news. 6. Miss, Marco is abducted by Sunny and Jason. It's true that Sunny had to deal with Sidwell. No, he didn't have to abduct Sidwell's son on the day of the memorial service for his mother. Marco deserved to bid his mother farewell. 5. Hit, keeps us wondering about Grace's intentions. Grace put forth extra effort to get Liam out of that hospital and into the clinic, where she and another physician promptly operated on him in an experimental procedure. And soon received $1 million. Everything about it seemed extremely suspicious, and even if the MRI results purport to demonstrate that Liam is completely tumor-free, we cannot believe that. Although this method of saving Liam wasn't on our bingo card, the show deserves praise for keeping us guessing. However, please let us know if we can rely on these findings. Is Liam really secure? 4. Miss, Chanel is suspected by EJ. EJ is unable to stop himself. He will stop at nothing to keep his son out of jail. To do it, he will even put Chanel in a bad position. He made arrangements for the appearance of that missing memory card, which ironically showed Chanel threatening to kill EJ. She never said those remarks throughout the confrontation. When will EJ find out? Eventually, it will backfire on him. 3. Hit, Abrecha's homecoming and Sasha's farewell. Don't get us wrong. We didn't want Sasha and Daisy to leave. We loved the idea of Michael and Sasha together. However, Nina's farewell to Sasha was especially touching, as she referred to Sasha as her other daughter. Then, together with Robert and Holly, Jason took Sasha and Daisy to safety. Additionally, we saw Robert for the first time in a long time. It was all pretty emotional. However, Sophia Matson will be missed. 2. Miss, the murder of Damien. To be honest, we are currently analyzing this development. It's difficult to comprehend why the show killed off Nate's half-brother after introducing him and bringing Amy back. Even more difficult to comprehend is why anyone assembled in Nice would wish to attack Damien or Kane. 1. Hit, Martin shares a tale from 2 years prior. It took a while for Martin and Vernon's terrifying night from 2 years ago to be revealed. In the first week of the show's debut, Martin had a nightmare. However, it was fascinating to watch the parts where Martin finally told Smitty what had transpired. Mike Manning and Brandon Claiborne did a fantastic job making it come to life. The hype was definitely justified at that moment. Remarkable remarks. B&B hit, Sheila exhibits self-control. Sheila was down another toe and no longer in the hospital. However, she chose to avoid bringing up the subject of how she assisted Steffi with the Luna dilemma. She hasn't made an effort to use that small amount of goodwill to improve her relationship with Finn. BTG hit, Nicole's feelings remain surface level. Nicole's feelings are erratic and disorganized. Additionally, we appreciate that she isn't holding back. Her instinctive reaction to being kept in the dark about her son Martin was warranted. Despite the fact that not everything she said to Anita was to our liking. Miss, prior to confessing to his family, Martin chooses to do so at a press conference. We are grateful that the press conference was cancelled because that was the incorrect course of action. Martin had to first speak with his family. Days hit, Thomas confronts Aunt Gwen. Thomas questioned Gwen about her possession of Julie's necklace and her refusal to return it. Thomas, we have the same question. Sunny and Nina are GH hit. Nina admitted it was Tracy's fault when Sunny confronted her about lying about him in the media. However, we could see that these two still clicked. What has caused them to split up? When Maurice Bernard and Cynthia Watrose are in scenes together, they always look amazing. Miss, Kai's apology tour is still going on. Kai went to Portia, but why? The damage was already done. He doesn't understand the intricacies of what went down and why they went down like that. He doesn't have to explain to the Ashfords or Robinsons why he thought it was right to support Drew. YNR too much time spent in Nice, Mississippi. We felt like we spent the majority of the week stuck in that maze with the other GC power players, even though there was some action in Genoa City. I wish there was a bit more harmony between the two places. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, so please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.